Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Well, the last 2 years have been filled with questions, concerns, adjustments, but fortunately, we've learned a lot as well. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Laura Kokinda, psychologist, and Joanne O'Brien, Medical Services Administration from LA Emergency Management. You guys have just been such a solid source for great information for the last couple of years, and I'm delighted to have you both here today.
Thanks for having us. Good to be back.
We keep hearing about these variants that are more transmissible, more transmissible, more transmissible. It's almost as each one has been, Delta to Omicron to now this one is entitled what again?
BA2.
BA2. What does that mean exactly?
If I'm standing next to you and you happen to be infected, and when you exhale, it's kind of airborne, it's in the droplets of your saliva, and I breathe it in, it takes less of that virus to make you ill. So it just hooks on, and once it gets into your system, it can duplicate a whole lot faster.
Okay, but with the vaccines, et cetera, the body's capacity to stop you from getting critically ill has been impacted in a good way.
Absolutely, we know that to be true. If you're vaccinated, you're almost 100% not going to be in the hospital or get a really severe illness.
Okay, all right. Dr. Kokinda, we've talked a lot about the mental things that have happened. What have you seen over the course of changing into this new, more open world? What kind of mental concerns should we be aware of?
It's very similar to what we were seeing before. It's just more change. A lot of us finally got comfortable, even with things we didn't like, just being aware of the dangers, wearing our mask, doing those things. And now suddenly people aren't wearing masks, you can go places, and as much as we've waited for that, it's a new change, and old habits die hard.
What are some of the things that you should be aware of that just add to the stress that we already have?
Watching the news, of course, and be informed, but limit it. Social media is another one. You want to be mindful of what you're taking in from your social media. A lot of people are gravitating to individuals who only think the way they do, which triggers a certain emotional response in us, and we're losing touch that people are people. We want to try to stay connected with everyone. And then the other thing is we really want to avoid drugs and alcohol. You can have maybe the glass happy hour, but we don't want to be using it for coping, because that takes us down a very unhealthy path. We've seen all different kinds of unhealthy coping, a lot of substance use and a lot of unhealthy eating, which has consequently triggered unhealthy medical conditions, and now we need to be aware of what we've been doing.
Okay, so let's go back to this whole thing. Now we're into this transition thing, and everybody's kind of feeling their way back into it. How about shaking hands?
Dr. Fauci said he hopes that never comes back.
But it's coming back.
Yeah, and he said, because gosh, it helped with the flu, the influenza. And even if it is coming back, you're right, people, when we go out, but you still sort of should wash your hands, maybe not in front of them, like, I'll be back, but it's probably not a good idea still. We still have it out there. It's really not sort of in terms of hygiene. You should always wash your hands after you've touched somebody else's hands, just generally speaking. So
now everybody has their different modalities, everybody has their different comfort levels, and now everybody is handling it differently. So how should we handle something if somebody extends their hand and I don't want to touch them, or how can we walk this compassion line when it comes to people's comfort level with whatever it is that we are currently handling when it comes to this virus?
Well, one thing, we all need to recognize everyone's at a different comfort level. We can't make assumptions, because those will get us into trouble. But if someone does extend a hand or something else you're not comfortable with, let them know. You don't have to aggressively let them know. You can make a joke like, oh, I'm not there yet, or anything along those lines to kind of diffuse that situation. Give them a heads up what your comfort level is, and then hopefully they receive appropriately.
Have we become better communicators, do you think, during this? Are you noticing that people are more willing to express themselves in terms of how they're feeling versus prior to the pandemic?
That's a great question. I think in certain ways, yes. A lot of people are very expressive about their feelings and thoughts and opinions. I think something, though, is we need to make sure that crosses group. So it's not just with those who we feel share the same thoughts and opinions and feelings. We want to be able to communicate to people who might feel or think differently as well.
There are some odd things I don't think any of us anticipated stepping back into the world. It's like, oh, this crowd's too big for me. Or, oh, why don't they have their masks on? Or, oh, where am I going to sit at the restaurant? You know, there's lots of this that we'd not even considered in our hopes that we would just be past it all. So how do we handle that personally? How do we, not only are we helping others, but how do we help ourselves?
Cut yourself some slack. You're not going to know how you feel in certain situations until you experience them. We might think we know, and we could very possibly be right in our predictions, but we may not, and that's okay. If you go somewhere and you recognize, I don't feel safe, or this doesn't feel right for me, pay attention to that instinct and go ahead and go home. Go leave a little early, communicate what you need to, and just communicate to your friends, family, they'll understand.
How are we doing with the efficacy of the tests? Are we feeling confident in the results? Because, for a while there it was, there is a false positive and a false negative. I mean, but now we all have that available to us to be able to, as you mentioned, have them in your home. So how are we feeling about the tests
The
themselves?
thing about the tests, that even a lot of people are doing the tests at home, so we really don't know the positivity rate right now because people aren't that sick. They might get a positive at home. This latest one, the BA2, is called the stealth for a reason. It hides, and so the test may not pick it up. So a lot of the providers in the community, if you sort of match all the symptoms of COVID, even if that PCR is negative, they're going to treat you like you have COVID, or send you at home to isolate, stay away from people.
People who have gotten ill, their long-term effects have been pretty varied and pretty dramatic. What are we seeing?
We're seeing a lot of what they call long haulers, is where people are having cognitive, or they're not able to think as clear, foggy brain. They've had lung damage, heart damage. They are fatigued all the time. So we're really still learning. And what it sort of tripped was this autoimmune response, where your body sort of, all the soldiers came out and kind of started attacking what they thought was the virus, but really having the effects on your major organs. So we really are still working through that, and I think a lot of people, their health will be changed like forever. They won't ever be 100%.
So they're taking that seriously, because I know for a while there was the question of whether that was actually legitimately a physical change in your body, or whether that was just a psychological.
No, it's real. The tests for your heart and your lungs are showing actual damage. So yeah.
It's a vicious thing. Bad information propagates faster than right information. So what's the best source for the correct information? Can we trust the CDC? Can we trust,
yes,
all of these?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the CDC, your public health department. They've done, I think, a remarkable job of keeping data updated. One of my favorite sites is Johns Hopkins University. They have tracked this data internationally from day one. And on Fridays, they have the actual doctors doing the research that give an update. It's just great. And they have slides. Just go to that site and you can kind of get a sense of what's going on everywhere. It's good.
But okay, so Johns Hopkins and
CDC, the local health departments, LA County site is really informative. It's very good.
Okay. And you both are incredibly informative, and thank you for your consistency and your great information that you've been providing through this, albeit endless scenario of stressful times. So thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this LA Currents.